My name is Chris Petruzzi, and I'm the Director of Design and Digital Media here at the TLTC. Well, not here because I'm in the University Center, but at the Teaching Learning Technology Center. And we've run a few sessions over the past year about Adobe, the Adobe suite. So Adobe InDesign, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Premiere. And today we want to run a session that we ran previously in the year about Adobe Express and specifically about presentation design within Adobe Express. So we'll get started. And for those of you who aren't familiar, so Adobe Express is Adobe's kind of web-based, easy-to-use creation tool. So it's kind of impressive. You can use Adobe Express for a lot of things. Like we'll show you in a second when we jump in. But when you take a look at Adobe Express and the things that you can create, really anything that's in the Adobe Creative Suite, video, presentations, graphics, web-based materials, portfolios, things like that, you can create in Adobe Express. Now, Express is a free tool, so like you can use it even without the licensing that we have here on campus. But because we all have access to the Adobe Creative Suite, if you have not, you can create an account at www.shu.edu/Adobe, sign up. You get access to all of the Creative Suite, but it also includes Adobe Express, some cloud storage, and things that go with that. So obviously encourage everybody to get access to the Adobe Creative Suite and access to Adobe Express that we're going to look at today. Just to kind of go over the things that we'll talk about today, and then we're going to just jump right into Adobe Express. What we want to do today is jump right into it. Jump into Adobe Express. Take a look at the interface, what you can do, the things you can create. Talk about, as we go through, talk about like some design principles. Anytime we do these type of things, we always throw in some of the baseline design principles that you're going to want to use. Things like contrast, alignment, repetition, and consistency to make your designs consistent and really look professional and stand out from other work that you might be doing without the Adobe Creative Suite, and trying to kind of level up the things that we're doing. And then we're going to look at designing with Express. And then finally, how can you export and share your work? So like I said, what is Express? Well, it's easy and cloud-based, so you can use it from anywhere, which is kind of like the best thing about it is that you can do it on a mobile device, on a tablet, on a computer. Everything is cloud sync, so you can jump on it. You don't have to install a program. So everything I'm going to do today is going to be done in the web browser, logged in and going to adobe.express.com and going through and getting everything in there. So we'll have all that stuff available to us, and we'll go through and explain how we can access all the templates and graphics and everything that is available for you in there in the Adobe Express program. And then really, I just want to jump into it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to the web browser. We're going to show you everything that's available from the start in Adobe. So we'll go over tools, the toolbars, and everything else that's in there. So it's just express.adobe.com, and it will give us, bring us to the homepage here. And so the difference between Adobe Express and all of the creative applications within the Adobe Creative Suite is that Photoshop and Illustrator and Adobe Premiere, they are powerful professional applications that we have access to and anyone can jump into, but there's a bit of a learning curve for those applications. Adobe Express is going to do kind of a little bit of hand-holding in a good way, right? In a way that you can jump in, and if you're not sure what you want to make, or you want to take a look at templates or things that other people have worked on, it's kind of like a creative community of templates and things that you can access to jump in and get some inspiration on where you want to start. So when you come to the home screen, it's going to throw you into it and show you what do you want to do, what do you want to make. Along the top, there's different categories for the things I would be designing. And the great thing about these is that not only are they templates, but they're going to be sized exactly to the format and to the medium that I'd be working in. So if I was making something for a social media post, if I was making something that was for video, we do a decent amount of video, but you can see that they have different places that these things would end up. So like TikTok video, anything sized exactly to what it would be. So this is going to be some vertical video. But what we want to look at is if we're looking at documents, right? So I want to look at the different type of documents that we can create. And then presentations in here. So it's going to give me a 1920 by 1080 file already formatted, ready for me to work on, and then give me access to all of the tools and graphics and icons and templates that Adobe Express is going to give us as we start working on it. I always point out actually the resume. So we do obviously some work with the students on campus and working with things like portfolios and how to prepare stuff. And I always think it's a good place. Now, PowerPoint, Word, all of that has templates built into it, but I think the volume of templates and starting points within Adobe Express is pretty impressive. And the things that it'll give you just from the start is pretty awesome. So as I scroll through on the screen, it'll give me featured templates as I go and take a look. Now, what I want to do is I'm just going to click presentation. I can click browse templates. And what it's going to do is it's going to launch me into the editing experience. So kind of looks like PowerPoint. I get my blank slate here and I have the tools around. So you're always going to have a toolbar at the top. And then you're always going to have your the menu on the left-hand side. And we'll go through what everything can do for us as we just start piecing together things on the template. I always like to start blank and then grab some things as we go through on the presentation, whatever file we're working on. So if I'm working blank right now, and on the top of the screen, I'll just click through and I'll show everything that we have here. So if I go to resize, this is basically just my canvas size, so it's going to show me what I'm working with. Now, depending on the type of document I'm working on, this is always going to be different. But for a presentation, it's going to be 1920 by 1080, and it's going to give us a standard widescreen that'll play on any of the screens, projectors around campus. But if you did need to change that, we could change that here if I was designing for a specific size. And then I get themes. So there's built-in color themes that I can work on here. I'll show you in a bit how we can make a theme that maybe we would use across all of our documents if we wanted to, like Seton Hall colors, for example. But there are built-in stuff, and I'm always interested in showing this type of stuff to specifically students on campus, because a lot of students that are making stuff for their organizations or even for their classwork, they're not necessarily going to be designing stuff that's within just Seton Hall colors. They might be working on a project for, it's based on like the rainforest. They want to have colors that are based on that. Or maybe like students that we work in the business school who compete in Pirates Pitch, and they're working on their own pitch deck for the product that they're working on in that presentation. So on the top, animations, we'll get into that once we get on some items on the screen, but it's just going to animate in the different items on screen. So same thing like PowerPoint. Background color is going to let me change the color of the slide specifically. It'll give me some swatches that I can place in here, but as always with most of the apps, I can go ahead and put in any color that I want if I have the code for it. And I'll show you where we can get codes to match up colors to the Seton Hall brand in a bit. Margins, it's going to be for my print. So if I was making a print thing and I need to show margins for print, well, I'm not too concerned with that with my presentation. And then that's that for that. So if I look on the left-hand side, so if I go through and then I select, so media is going to let me upload from my device, right? So let's start to build out just from this base slide so that I can show you the things that I'd be working on here. So if I wanted to do text, I can go in and it gives me options for text. So if I click add a title, I get my title, and then I could put it right on the page. Any item on the page I can type in and or double click, and it will let me start editing. So you see now that I have something on the page, the menus start to change. So if I click this on the left-hand side, now it's giving me the options for that box specifically. So everything is context sensitive. So it'll give me options for the text, for the image, for the icon, whatever I put in there. This panel on the side here is going to give me options to then go ahead and change it. So if I want to do something like, maybe I'll change this to Franklin Gothic, which is the kind of bold Seton Hall font, right? And then I can extend this box. So maybe this is just like the title, like the header, right? And then I can put this up here. and then I want to change it. So I want to change the color. So every box and every context sensitive menu here that I'm working on is going to give me the text or the color picker to then change. I'm going to switch my tab here for a quick second. I just want to call attention to something that might be helpful to everybody here. But University Relations launched obviously the new university brand standards last year, but there is a website, and it's shu.edu/university-relations/brand. It has a really great rundown of the brand standards for the university. And this is not only just like visually, but also messaging. So if you're working on something and want it to be kind of in that Seton Hall University voice, there's a lot of great stuff here about narrative and writing and everything. But what I want to look at real quick is just visual identity. And in here, and I'll scroll down real quick because I want to get to actually color palette. So like I said before, if I want to bring in colors, right, bring in specific colors to my document, and I want them to be university colors. And this is really consistent, not only with the Adobe apps, but you can do this in Word, you can do this in PowerPoint, any of the apps. But I want to grab this color code here. So 006089 is the hex code for our university Seton Hall blue. And I can just paste that in there, and then now I got that color in there. So it's really easy to just change things around and move things onto my canvas here. But then maybe I want to add some body text, right? So now it's gives me another box here, right? Smaller font. But you see it kept my blue because it knew that, okay, you started with that. You want to go ahead and put the text in. This is the paragraph, right? So put that in there. And then it's just building out. Now this is like blank, just starting from nothing, right? Which you could do, but there are templates that we can show you and you can start. And the great thing about it is even in the Adobe Express templates, if you find a format, you find a layout that you really like, everything is changeable. So I can go ahead and click all of the items on the page and then change them to be the colors and the fonts of whatever I want, or maybe just the colors and the fonts of the template that I had already found I like, and I don't really need to make many changes. So anytime I want to add text onto the page, that's where I'm going. I'm going to go add text. I can add text box, do whatever I want. For media, this is going to give you access to photos, videos, audio, putting stuff on there. Because with Adobe Creative Cloud, we have access to Adobe Stock. So Adobe Stock is Adobe Stock image library. It's something else that you can access with your Adobe account here on campus. So that's, I think it is, I forget if it's stock.adobe. Yes. So stock.adobe.com. So you can go ahead and type in whatever you want here. So say if I want to type in basketball. And these images are linked within Adobe Express as well, right? So you see, because I'm logged in, it says these images are licensed. So the license for Adobe Stock for people on campus, for both faculty, staff, and students, the license only extends to work that's within their classroom. And then for faculty and staff, obviously it extends to any work that's happening on campus. So for most faculty and staff, you can license an image and use it in a presentation, whatever you're doing. For students, it's part of an educational purpose, but like students and staff and faculty couldn't use it for something outside. Say they had their own freelance business or something, you wouldn't be able to use those images. But I point it out because it's a great resource, and if you needed images that you're not going to have to worry about copyright, you're not going to have to worry about licensing, and you want to be able to use things in your presentation, this is where you're going to go. Now, that is all available to us when we're in here and I want to search. Now, they might come up a little bit different, but if I type in basketball, it should give me, it's going to give me access to images that I can then put into my presentation. So if I just click it, now this image is right in my right inside my presentation, and then I can go and keep working and use this for whatever I was doing. So maybe I'm making a presentation about basketball, and I'm using this as my my full background, and I wanted to use it as like the full slide. But just as an example, I wanted to show you how I can do that, but maybe this is just an image that I'm showing on the screen. But so when you go to media, that's going to be pull all the imagery from Adobe Stock. But obviously, if I have my own images, I can click upload from device, and I actually have a folder here that is just a bunch of images that we took on campus. So I could go ahead, click that image, click open, and then it's going to place it on the screen. Now we always get that context sensitive menu, right? So I get some options. So if there's a person in the foreground, it can remove, can do some like healing and stuff to the image. So I can remove the background, I can remove part of an object within it. But if I click the image, right, and I double click and I move it around here, you see I get this frame, right? So I get a frame and then I get the image itself. So if I wanted to crop too, I could easily do that by double clicking. Now it doesn't get rid of the rest of the image. It's almost just like I have a window here, right? Like into what my actual crop is. So I'm not like, it's good to do it this way because I'm not being destructive to the image. Sometimes we might go into another app, crop the images, and then bring them into Adobe Express or whatever I'm working on. But if I do it like this, I still have the rest of the image. So if later on I decide, hey, I don't want this to be, and I'm just going to delete this. Okay, I don't want this to be a square right here. I want it to be like, I don't know, maybe a full vertical, right? So like I'm doing this. I'm just extending the handles on the end. And then if I double click, you see I still have the rest of the image, but I just kind of did a nice little like creative crop here. And then now we start building. So maybe this is like my title slide. And I can make this a lot larger here, right? Go through. And then maybe this is my subtitle. I'm moving through. And then it's just placing things together. But I always think it's good to show, like when we're obviously importing media, because anything that we work on, we're probably going to be importing things that we've worked on, whether it's images, other text from another application. But this is where I'm going to go to then go ahead and put that stuff inside of my presentation. We covered text and getting that stuff in there. And then, so elements. So elements is anything else besides text and imagery. It's a lot of like icons and little stickers for like animation. I feel like the old-fashioned thing to say is clip art, but I don't know if we're really calling it clip art anymore. But the thing that I like to point out in here is the icons. I always think it's really good in a design, and especially in like a presentation and a slide deck, is instead of using like standard bullets and just doing bullet points for things, I always like to do call outs with like with an icon, right? So instead of just the regular bullet point, like why not use an icon that's like specific to the point that we're talking about. So like if I typed in, I keep saying basketball just because it's on my head for some reason, but obviously I can pull in icons. Now these are not, so I pull this in and then go. So like these aren't just images, they're vector art, so that we have control over how large it is, but I could also change the color, and it's going to change the color of the actual, the line art. So then I get options like when I'm in here. And that's part of that context sensitive menu. So everything is in there. And then I can, right, I'm just typing. But there's a lot of options for us here in the elements, right? So if I didn't want the line art version, I wanted the solid version, right? So keep the color that's in there. And then it lets me scale it. Any item that I drop onto the screen is going to give me those corners, right? So the corners let me scale, and it's going to scale proportionate. And then the sidebars is what I'm doing to kind of change my frame, right? So corners are always going to let me scale, right? And that's scaling everything and scaling the artwork or the image that's inside of it. The flat like corners in here, those are the ones that are going to give me my my frame, so that I could place something on the canvas and then have it cropped and cropped to sides. If we go to charts, so the charts and grids is really good. I always feel like it's kind of hard in PowerPoint and Word and Excel when I'm working with charts, just because like PowerPoint really wants you to use an Excel like database or an Excel sheet to then feed the data. But sometimes I just want to make a pie chart with a few data points that I know that maybe they're changing a little bit, but it's more just like almost like in the sense of like an infographic, right? So like if I wanted to put a bar here, and then let's go, I'm going to make, let's make those side like, that's like gray, right? And then I have access over like the value here, right? So that I can say, for this bar chart, I can put in my numbers, but I can like on the fly just kind of like edit this and give me like the sense of what's going on here, right? So if I go and then say 85%, and then I'm filling it in, make this white, and then place this over here, right? So it just makes it a little bit easier, like when I get like kind of these pre-made like charts and graphs and things like that, that I can put numbers in, right? And then just be able to edit it without having to go through and feed it from an Excel sheet or do anything like that. So what I want to do now is, now that I just kind of like made something that isn't really visually pleasing, I'm just going to go through and search for a template within Adobe Express, and then I'll show you a template or just like a test presentation that we had made to kind of illustrate the points that we made, and then go through things that you can do in here. So if I was working on something, and I mentioned Pirate's pitch before, but I always think it's cool to look at like, okay, give me like a good like pitch deck for something. Or I saw like a lookbook before, right? If we were like working on something and it was like a larger project and we wanted to like do a lot of large imagery. Let's try pitch deck again. I know there was one that I saw that was interesting before, but let's just try this. It's got 4 slides. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good example because you know what? It gets pretty simple. It's not like super involved, but like I can edit this and make this like what I want. So what I can do is I can either add as pages, which would add all of these from this template into the existing document that I'm working on, or I can do start new file. So if I do start new file, it's just going to start me a new file here, and I'm going to go through and start to edit. So I can go ahead and see, change my background, change all of these. Anytime I click any of these, it gives me that context sensitive menu, or I can just click in and double click and edit whatever is here. So let's say I was making something. Let's change the background. I always get this mixed up. But say I want my blue in here, right? It's changing it. It's keeping that texture. So maybe I'm working on that. Maybe it's something specific that I was working on. But we have like the changes that are happening to the library. So maybe I was making a presentation about the innovation hub in the library, right? And I was just using this as a base, and then changing the things in here. So I don't want red, right? So I'll go in here, and I'm just using those context sensitive menus, changing it. I'm going to delete that logo because I don't need that. And then let's do this. Let's see, is this a gradient? Oh yeah, so this is like an image, right? So that's something that I probably want to replace and say, maybe this is like a detail shot like I was doing before, right? Something like, I mean, that might work. It might be too skinny, but let's see. If I do open, and then it places it, and then I got to rotate it because it's in the wrong orientation. So I can go to crop, right? And then I should, yeah, on the sides, I can get my rotate. So I want to place that there, right? Just adding like a little bit extra to it. And then just working based off of this template here. Same thing. And then I can go through my file and work off of all of the different stuff that I want to work on, and that I want to tailor to what my presentation is going to be. Let's go through. Yep, same thing. So I'm going through these. So what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and then grab a pre-made one that'll really illustrate and kind of show you what we can do with like a full designed presentation. So on the digital media team, our designer Leonette put this together as we were working through slides. But we just took some information that was on the university website and was like, okay, what if we were just doing an about like presentation, using some general like high level information about about the university. So, but all of this stuff was just using the built-in shapes, right? Built-in shapes, importing some imagery, using the ability to kind of mask, right? So this is just a circle here, and then we're using it to mask the rest of the image to kind of go along with the look of like the campus green and work with it. And then everything on this page, if you see, right, when I go through, and I think there's really good examples of those charts that I have on here, and it's easy to see how you can set something up and set a document up and then be able to edit it later on when you're working on it. So if I go to overview, we have some information. You see we brought in some of those icons, right? So these are just icons that are within the system that we got from the elements and from media, from searching from Adobe Stock to see those items that are in there. Then we're using just images of the different campuses here. And then again, we're using like these frames, right? So some of this is built off of just stuff that we have. But then a lot of this is just like the built-in templates that we're working on. So like taking a template, going into Express and finding something that you like, and then using it as a base, using it to kind of tailor your own presentation. When you work in PowerPoint, there's base presentation templates in there, but a lot of them don't fill it out with like suggestions for where you would put media, suggestions where you would put like, even that presentation that we looked at before, like setting up a table of contents and looking at the media that's in your slide deck. Express is really great in the fact that it'll show you and give you kind of like that experience of, I don't really know what I want to make right now, but how can I get started and where can I pull inspiration from? And it's a great point to jump into and then just kind of mess around. Really, a lot of this stuff is trial and error, right? I jump in and it's me clicking around and seeing what can I change, what can I use, what can I reuse, and then how can I take my own content and then put in here and build a presentation or build whatever it is, right? If it's my like the resume I looked at before, that's tough, especially for a student to like jump into something like that and not know, hey, how should I format this? I want something that kind of stands out or something I can make that's really personal to me, and go in there. Oh, okay. Got a question. Someone had a question. Let's see.
I have a question, Chris. This is awesome. Does it allow for multiple editors, like in like a shared doc or something?
Yes, it does. And that was one of the things that I want to show. So let me jump through some of these other bits of the presentation, and I'll go and show you how we do that. So yeah, that's a great part. It's like cloud-based tool, especially with Adobe. Anytime I'm in here, I can go ahead, share, and then I will get, so you see me and Leonette are working on this together. I can control who has access to it via this link, right? So like only invited people. So this one document, if I send the link out, because if I do copy link, it'll give me an easy link to share. Just me and Leonette are going to use it. But if it's something that you wanted to say, hey, I have somebody who doesn't have an Adobe account right now, or I just want to make it easy for somebody to jump in and see it, you could do kind of anyone with the link. That's the same thing with like when we're sharing on campus SharePoint links. So if we share SharePoint links to certain files or photos, whatever we're working on, most of the time we're just keeping it within the campus and the university. But when I go through and put stuff that I know, hey, maybe somebody isn't going to log in or isn't going to be seeing it, I'll do the anyone with this link. So yeah, because we have, so I can type in other members of my team to see, let's see if Corey's in here. Yeah, so if I need to share this with Corey, who's someone else on the digital media team, or Mike Supios, and say, hey, jump on this, can you help us out? And it's the same way with when you work on like a Office 365 document. Everything you'll see like in the corner, you see that they're working. You'll see them kind of moving stuff around. It's actually almost more like in real time than I've seen from the Adobe or from the Microsoft Docs, is that like I can see somebody, if Leonette was on this or Mike was on it or Corey was on it, and they're making changes, it happens almost instantly. So yeah, if I go through and share or invite to work, and you can control too like what they actually do. Leonette already is an editor on this, so she can edit. But I can make it so somebody's maybe just a view only, if they're just reviewing it and you don't want somebody moving things around. So moving through, you can see we kind of set this up as like a traditional presentation. We've got standard headers, standard like font sizes and everything in here. But then we're moving through and we're doing kind of like the infographic style thing of like big call outs. I think we get caught up when we're especially doing presentations, especially doing PowerPoint. We get caught up a lot of like the slide is my, almost like my teleprompter, right? And when you're presenting, you just put on all of the bullet points that you're just going to say anyway. I feel like it's really good to get into the habit of creating slides that are supporting what you're saying, right? Slides that aren't just an info dump of everything. Sometimes you need to do that because maybe you really need to get that information out to people. And you go through and have that stuff there. So I think using Express, it lets you be a little bit more visual. And I think that's great because I think when you give the bite-sized information or you put an image on the screen, I think that's so much more helpful because if you're giving a live presentation, the focus should be like, it's on you and what you're saying, right? And the slides behind you are just things to support what you're saying or to do call outs like we've done here and like we've done, on this slide. I think there's another question from Anthony. Let's see.
Hey, Chris. Yeah. So just kind of a follow-up to the last one. In terms of, element or document perpetuity here, if an employee leaves the university and, how do these created projects in Adobe Express kind of preserve? So if they share the link with me, can I always access it even after they leave? Or is it something that like, well, if they leave and their account gets deactivated, then that element or whatever presentation they created is kind of lost with them?
Yeah. So no, it definitely makes sense. So if you're an editor, right, on the document and it's like a shared document, my first recommendation would be to like, if you're in there, you can create a copy. So like I can create a copy from, I have to check. I'm not 100% sure what happens if somebody's account is deactivated and if that goes away. All of it is stored in the Adobe like cloud storage. But you're right, it would be a concern if it was tied to someone's account. But if you are both editors on it and you both have like ownership rights over it, you can go in and say, create like any of these documents that are in here. I could like start new, like from this, right? Like save as a copy or, make my own, right? Make my own version. I just got to remember where that option is. I know it's there somewhere. It's a good question though. I'll look into it because I'm curious. I know, right, if somebody's account and it's tied to their account, we did have something similar with Adobe Portfolios where it was like, hey, once your account is, right, for students specifically, and when your account is, you're no longer at the university and it's got to like roll over. So I'll check and try and see if I can get an answer like. But my recommendation is like always just create a copy. Like if you know somebody's leaving, right, or somebody's moving on, and you have access to it, you can always get to it, right? But when their account is deactivated, it might go away, but you can just make another copy based off of it.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is a good example here of like the infographics, and Lena has illustrated a little bit better than I did when I was just kind of poking around in here. But you could place these kind of infographics here with live data, and as I'm working on it, right, I can go to my value here and then just go ahead and change whatever it is in here, and then see the change there live. It's kind of a lot easier than, okay, I got to make sure my spreadsheet is up to date. Now, obviously, there are a place where a spreadsheet you would need it, right? If you have a lot of data and you're keeping track of everything. But when I'm just making call outs like this, it's like I just want the chart to show me the number. I just want to be able to update this. Say we're giving this presentation like once a quarter, and we want to update the data because things things increased, and we want to show reflect that in our numbers. It's a lot easier to do that type of stuff when we're working in here. Whoops. And then just another example of like the icons in here, right? These are all grabbed right from, and you can see because I can change the color, I know it's vector, right? It's a vector art, so it's line art. I can change all of the colors in here. But all of these are generated and taken right from the elements in here. So it's like an awesome place to then say, hey, I need to fill out my presentation with more than just content on the screen. I want to have some imagery in there. I want to have some icons as like to do this type of infographic thing. And all we're doing is going to elements, and then I'm going to my icons here, and then putting that into my document. So maybe I was changing that first one, and I was just looking for like a group of people, right? Just to see what it comes up with and what I can do in the document. Yeah, so I mean, like pretty standard, like some of these things, right? But if I wanted something a little bit different, there's always the option, right? Bring that in there. I can always change my colors. Now I'm messing up the integrity of Leonette's design, but just for demonstration purposes. But working through there and showing you that like all that stuff is here and it's ready for you to kind of go ahead and use yourself for your presentation. And then same thing here, just kind of showing a timeline, showing more data on the screen, and then finally final slide, just mixing those icons. Icons, big data, right? Smaller, smaller label for it. I think it's, like I said before, I think it's important to think about when you're designing a presentation, to really think about like what absolutely needs to be on the screen, and what could be there as like just kind of like visual flair, right? Supporting imagery and supporting information on the screen that works for you and then works for your viewers. You never want to overload the information on the screen, because then you get in the habit of like, hey, I'm just reading the screen. I'm just turning, the classic, like, hey, I'm just looking back at the PowerPoint screen because I'm reading what's on the slide there. I think hitting the presentation beats and hitting the points of data and the things on your screen that really, really make the most sense of placing like on your presentation. So if I go through my presentation and I'm like, okay, well, like, it's not a PowerPoint, how do I present it? Well, it's the same way, right? It's the same way as presenting. So you see in the top right corner, we have this present button. I can enter presenter mode, and then curious what it's going to do with the setup here. Okay, yeah. So you're seeing my own, because I'm mirroring my screen. So you are seeing the, like, not the slide view, but it's the same way as like PowerPoint when you do presenter view and you get your slides at the bottom. You can kind of see what's coming up, and then you're playing your slideshow out. So it behaves the same way. If you're comfortable and have presented with PowerPoint, you're doing basically the same thing and seeing your own slides in that slide presenter view, and then the slides themselves go out to the presentations, presentation screen. And you just do that right from the web browser, and you have it. Now, if you don't have like connectivity, or you're worried about like, oh, I don't have internet where I'm going, I want to have a file, or you just want to like have one for review, you can download your presentation, right? So I can download as a PDF, and that'll give me a PDF that I can full screen and then move through. I wouldn't get any animations, or if I put video and multimedia into it, just because it would be a PDF. But for most presentations, I present it off a PDF, and it's been, it's fine. It's really, if you're not doing any kind of animations, it's the same thing. But you can also export it as a PowerPoint. I would recommend like testing it first, because there are going to be like some inconsistencies on layout and stuff. But you can totally export as PDF or as a PowerPoint, and then continue the work or use it as an offline file, and it'll give you like the editing. And it'll let you edit in PowerPoint. You won't have the same tools and functionality that you have in Adobe Express, but to have the ability to say, hey, I did it in Express, but maybe I'm presenting at a conference and they're like, no, you gotta have a PowerPoint deck, like give me the deck, because the AV team or whatever is loading it into a main computer. You do have that option. And you can also export as like images, flat images. So if you're just designing or working on something, you can do that as well. And then again, share if I was sharing with other people. And then comments. So comments, we actually use comments in the Adobe Creative Suite a lot. not just with PowerPoint, but with PDF reviews. When we work in Adobe Premiere, we work in Adobe InDesign, when we're working on stuff amongst the digital media team, we use the comment feature, because if I'm working on something or the team is working on a video or Leonette's working on a design, we can go ahead and put in comments and then we'll see them direct in the document. So that's the same thing here. So if you are working with somebody on your document, say like a supervisor or something, and like they're not necessarily editing, but you're giving them a link to as a viewer, they could come in here and add comments to the document and then have it show up. So like if I click on something, right, click on an object and say maybe consider different title size for this, and I click submit, right, it gives me the comment. I'm logged in, so it shows who made that comment. And then whoever else is working on it will then be able to jump in and see all the comments that are made, and then we can click and resolve them. So it's pretty helpful, especially when you're working on, a design or a document as a group. We can go in and make comments and then resolve them as they are, as they're done and as they're resolved. I can always see resolved, right? So like if I go down to the bottom menu here, sometimes you want to go back and be like, wait a minute, we made a change. What was that? By using the filter on the bottom, I can still see the resolved comments, even if they are, they're already done. We don't have to worry about them anymore. Let's see. So the next thing that I want to do is, let's see. I think I want to go back to the home screen and then go through a little bit, and then work on what I want to show you. So if I'm working on a file and I'm working on multiple files, right? And I know I have a bunch of images that I'm always using, or I know that I'm using like the same fonts over and over again, color palettes, things like that. There's an area in here where and anybody can create them, where you can create your own like set of icons here instead of like things that I'm working on. So I have my own here, but if I just go create new, I want to show you, I'll just call this a test brand. So what this does is anytime I go in and edit a document, and actually this will be consistent across all of the Adobe apps, not just Express, I can have a place where like I can store the things that I'm always using. Like those images I showed you of like the green and the university center. We have a set of images that like we like to use for certain things, whether it's for backgrounds or for, accents or even just call outs. Like we have a bunch of images that we use like that. So we have a place, we have them in SharePoint, we have them in a bunch of other places, but if I have a select few, maybe say calling them my select images that I'm always going to use when I'm making a document or a presentation, I could go ahead and put those in there in this document. But I think even more important is the fonts that I'm always using, right? So if like I'm always using a certain set of fonts and I want to be able to access them and not have to like scroll through the list of like 400 fonts that are available in there, I can go ahead and add a font. So like I said before, like I want to have Franklin Gothic, so the header font that we use at the university. I want to be able to use that. And then maybe I'm using if I add Geller, which is like the body font, right? I want to add that to my own like brand that I'm working on. Go ahead and click that. And obviously I'm just using Seton Hall stuff, but like when we encourage students who are using this, like I said, for people doing their own presentations or their own student orgs or whatever it is, obviously you can put the fonts that you want to use in here, fonts that you're always using, into this, into your own brand so that you can use it. And then if I was like doing my colors, right, we'll just you can give it whatever name you want, but then I get the color picker, right? So I get my color picker, and then I keep going back. I feel like I should just have this memorized. Why don't I? I feel like it's there we go. So put this in here, right? I'm adding my colors in there. I know we use like the cyan, right? I won't just be exact with it, but if I use a Seton Hall cyan, right? And then I want gray, and I want like the black and white. So I'll do gray. So I'm kind of just putting together a palette. So now whenever I open a new document or I work on something different, I'm always going to have those colors. So you saw throughout the presentation, I was kind of going back and forth and getting that color code and putting it into my swatch, my color picker. If I set it as one of my palettes, like I don't really have to do that. I can just have that. They should show up in the document that I'm working on. And then I can say, yeah, use the colors from the palette that I already made. Same thing with fonts. Like the fonts will show up as like the, hey, you want to use this? It's the top. It'll be like the top font that I can select. And then same thing with graphics. Like I said, if I'm working on a bunch of images that I know I want to use, so these are just uploading right now. I just picked a bunch of Seton Hall images just to upload. But if I know that across like my presentations, my documents, we can use this to make, and we have used Express to make like digital signage on campus, right? So if I know, rather than using PowerPoint or Photoshop, so I know that like I have a set of images that I'm going to use when I'm making signage around campus. Like let me use the images that I know that I'm always going to be going back to, right? Rather than just like, oh, let me upload it again. If it's already stored within like my brand here, once I go and start editing on new documents, they should show up when I'm working on them. So let me go and then start a new document. I'll just make another presentation, right? Presentation, give me a blank slide, and then just add a title. Yep. So now I made that test palette. So that palette's going to show up everywhere where I'm working. So I can just say, yeah, let's make that title the main blue, and I'm able to do that, right? And then also my brand will show up at the top. So like, it's called a brand, but like, I mean, it could be just all your own personal preferences for like the fonts and the colors and the icons and the images that you feel like you're always using, so that they show up at the top and you're always going to have access to them when you're working on new documents. Makes things a little bit easier, and it's been kind of indispensable for us. Like I said, not only just for Adobe Express, the entire Adobe Creative Suite will use this brand. So even though I made this brand in Adobe Express, if I went and opened up Photoshop, I could add it as a library that I'm using within the program, or in Adobe Premiere and Adobe Illustrator. Makes it a lot easier to bounce between different documents, but to keep my designs and keep everything that I'm working on consistent. And I think that's like the big thing. We talked about like kind of making your presentation like concise and like keeping the information on the slides to a minimum, because you have to think about where people are viewing it from, right? There's a bunch of like design principles, and the one that I always love to talk about when we're talking about not only presentations, but like it's big for like poster design and like digital signage. You have to think about like what your viewer is seeing at like different levels. So specifically for a sign, but like a presentation, right? There's that level, right? If I'm past, for digital signage, right? If I'm past like that 10 feet, what are people seeing first, right? They're seeing the really big titles. They're seeing maybe it's an image that catches their eye, something that's really large. And that's the thing that's drawing them in. Like when you're giving a presentation, it should be something that's like large and draws them in and kind of accentuates what you're talking about. And for a digital sign, it's going to be that title. It's going to be that imagery. So you think of them past that 10 feet. Okay, now you got my attention. So now where am I moving now? I'm going closer in, and I'm underneath that 10 feet, and I'm at like, call it like the 5 to 6 feet, right? And I can see, see other stuff. I'm more interested. And so if I'm looking at the slides in the presentation, okay, what's like the numbers on there? What's the call out? What's the like little infographic piece? Even just a bullet point. What's the bullet point? It's like descriptor there. And like, so that in the terms like digital signage, it's that second level where you've kind of caught their eye. Then after that, anything else that they come in closer, if they're physically moving closer to it, or if they're just more engrossed, that's when they're getting all of the information. So it's like those 3 levels, right? I mean, it's just thinking about like a billboard, right? It's the advertising kind of method. It's like something catch their eye that they're going to see, draw them in, and then you can give them the full information, the full call to action. It's like, what are you trying to tell your viewer? And I think having a tool like this really helps you get into that, where you can create something that's like visually engaging, but is also, and I'm trying to get back to that main one, visually engaging, but is also like really easy to jump into and use. So if I go here, and that's what I think is really great about Adobe Express. I think using Photoshop and using InDesign, and we do sessions on those as well, it can be a little bit intimidating. Whereas like you can jump into Adobe Express after kind of like seeing the stuff that we're talking about here, and you can just start, pick a template, pick somewhere to start from, and then make your own tweaks, change the text, change the colors, import your own imagery, and then like right off the bat, you're gonna have something that'll look professional and look clean and look like really nice. Like I'll pull up one of the kind of resume examples, right? Because I think it's a great thing for students to see when they're working on trying to make themselves and present themselves professionally. Like some of these are pretty, like this one's nice. This is very nice. This is a very nice layout. Like if you want to put an image on your resume, but you can see there's like a lot of thought and into making things, look clean and professional and everything's aligned properly. It's those little attention to detail things that make a piece look really professional. And I think this is a good example of that. But it's also a great example of like, you could jump into Express and just kind of take a look at what's available to you and then go ahead and edit this whole thing, right? To be in the style that I want it to be, in the colors that I want it to be, and get like a really nicely designed, my name's too long, a really nicely designed piece, and just starting from that main like screen and saying like, what do I really want to make, and how can I use the tool here to get me there? Let me go back here. So we got about like a little bit under 10 minutes left. Does anybody else have any other questions or something that you want to see or, Yep.
I have another question. For the social media templates, can you upload it right to those platforms from the Adobe Express app?
So that's a good question. So I think it's going to give you an export. I don't know. Let me see. Let's go back. Let's see. But I think, honestly, the social media stuff is probably one of the best uses for this, because to be able to have like instantly in like, let's just do Instagram portrait book, have it instantly in the size and the format that it needs to be when you're exporting to those. And they're all different. It's only like tiny differences, but like I know like the Instagram size is different than the Facebook size. So, I don't think there is I could be wrong.
I do have a secondary question too with social media. Is Adobe Express available as a phone app?
Yeah. So yes, there's an app for the phone, and for like tablet, iPad, Android, iOS. That's like the best part about it is that like it's like Adobe's like farthest of all their apps. It's the one that's like the farthest of like you can do this like from anywhere. There's a mobile version of Photoshop. There's a mobile or a web version of Photoshop, but Express from the ground up was always basically just a web/mobile version. I'm looking in here and it says that you can schedule it. So I have not done this myself. You can connect. You can totally connect your social media platform to this. Yeah, post directly to Instagram from the mobile app. Yeah, Adobe. Yeah, so you would need the Adobe Express mobile app, but or you can schedule it from the desktop. So you should be able to do that. If you need help, let me know. I'd be curious myself how that works. I mean, if you want to look at that together, I'd be happy to. Let's go back. I can't see the chat, so I'm not sure if anybody else, but if you do have a question.
Yeah.
Speak up. Yep.
Hi, my name is Tamala. What I do is about 6 or so workshops through Microsoft Teams, which we're on right now. And usually I'm using PowerPoint and sharing. I would be able to do that with the Adobe Express created PowerPoint, because that's what I want to make sure that I would be able to say create it. And then as my students are joining, be able to go ahead and run it and share it.
Yeah, so the way that, it's just the web, right? So like if I'm on a Mac, but it's the same thing on a Windows machine.
Okay.
I'm just in a Chrome web browser, right? So if I have my browser open and I go into, I'm not going to do it because I'll create like a loop But
Right.
yeah, if I went to share, right, I'm here, and then I share window. Yeah, I can just share this Adobe right here. Here it is, Adobe, the untitled document. So it'd be the same way. You're just sharing. I mean, you could share your whole screen, but if it's easier to share just the window, yeah, you would do it the same way. Just don't share the PowerPoint. Share the Adobe Express, whether it's Chrome or Firefox, whatever browser that you're working on. But yeah, it shouldn't really make too much difference.
Okay, great. Because that's always, my concern. I want to be able, if I'm creating it, I thought because, of course, it's in PowerPoint and it's just, one Microsoft application to the other, I usually have no glitches. But if I wanted to say, go ahead and create this in Adobe, I would just go ahead and share the Express, and they still should be able to see the presentation.
Yeah, they would be fine. They're in Teams. There's like some functionality specific to PowerPoint if you're like sharing the PowerPoint directly. But I mean, if you're just looking to share the content so that they could see it, like sharing the Express window would be fine.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, Chris. It's Nikki. We have a lot of people that use Canva for especially social media and flyers and things like that. And the goal is that people move to Adobe Express.
So Adobe Express is like Adobe's answer to Canva, but I know that since Canva isn't like an officially supported like application from information technology, the preference would be that users move to Express and aren't using Canva or something that's not officially supported, right? It's kind of like the same thing of like, oh, if we want to, we're running the sessions on Teams, right? And people talk about like Zoom, or so we wouldn't run something on Zoom, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
If in our department, we, instead of just sharing it to each individual member in our department, is there a way to have a site in Adobe sort similar to a SharePoint sort of deal?
So, so if you wanted to make a folder of hey, go in here and here's all of our documents and stuff. Not really. I mean, you could make an addressable link instead of just sharing it individually and then say, hey, here's the link that will work for my team, and they would go to it. I don't know. Well, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, I might be able to I haven't really messed with it, but you might be able to make a library. Let's see. Express presentation. I mean, there is all, types of
Chris, it looks like you can make your library and share it with whoever you'd like.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the way to go is I always get confused because there's projects, right? And I know in there I can save templates, but then there's also libraries. I think that would get you where you were, where you're looking to go. Yeah, because if I say, let's see. Yeah, but it's adding graphics here. I have to play around with it and see. There's a lot in here. There's some things that, when we're designing stuff and we're making things, we're kind of working on hey, this is a specific design. And we do project tracking and stuff in other tools. And then it's just here's the file. And we still use SharePoint for most of our stuff that's, in the actual Adobe programs. Everything is stored there for us. But yeah, it is a unique situation because Express is just a strictly online tool. So you're not getting a file, right? You're just getting the link and the shareable document link. But
it looks like you can create a library in Creative Cloud, which gives you a little bit more flexibility outside of Express.
Yeah, I'm just curious how I would share or not share. So if I'm working on an Express document, it's how do I save it to the cloud, right? Save it to a specific folder. And then, yeah, of course, if I could then figure out where I'm saving it, then I would be able to, let's see. Yeah, I think the project might work, actually. I can't, do I already have one called test? Let's just call it file library. Could invite Leonette. invite. Oh yeah. So that's the way I would do it. I would do the project, because then I can like make a project and say, hey, here's all the things that, like, I mean, a good example, if we were doing it, if RT Digital Media was doing everything in Adobe Express, we're working on, or have been working on a bunch of stuff related to like Christmas at the Hall, right? We do the video, we help out with some graphics and stuff. So maybe I made a project that was Christmas 2025, and in it is the video that we're working on, and like a flyer or digital signage or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, that would be the way to do it, because then I would say, hey, here's the project that we're working on, and it's for my team. I mean, I could just make a project for the digital media team, and then create files and presentations and things within there. So it's a way to do it and keep it organized for Adobe Express files. That's the way I would do it. Just kind of like poking around here, it seems to be the best way to do it. Thanks everyone for joining, and obviously, if you have any questions, you can shoot me a message on Teams. I'm always anything about Adobe, Creative Suite, Express, PowerPoint, all the creative applications. If you need help, or if you need some help or want to work with a digital media team or us at the TLTC, let me know. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Enjoy the rest of the 2025 year here, and thanks for joining us.